There's a white powder sitting on a pharmacy shelf right now for under $5 that can cut your garden pest problem down dramatically. And it has nothing to do with any pesticide, any spray, or any product with a brand name on the label. Most gardeners walk past it every week without a second glance. And the ones who do know about it, they're usually the ones with the greenest tomatoes on the block, the fewest hornworms, and more fruit than they know what to do with by August. Here's what frustrates me about the modern gardening world. Walk into any garden center in America and you'll find an entire wall dedicated to pest control. Sprays, granules, foggers, systemic treatments, products with warning labels and gloves-required symbols and disposal instructions. You could easily spend $60, $80, $100 trying to protect a single season's tomatoes. And what do most of those products actually do? They knock back the visible pest for a week or two. Then the next generation hatches, or a new wave moves in from your neighbor's yard, and you're back at the register buying another bottle. The problem never actually gets solved. It just gets managed, expensively, temporarily, and with chemicals that also happen to wipe out your earthworms, stress your soil microbes, and occasionally burn the very leaves you were trying to protect. What if the reason pests keep coming back isn't a pest problem at all? What if it's a soil problem, specifically a nutritional one, and the pests are just the symptom? This is the shift that changes everything. Pests are remarkably good at detecting weakness. They locate stressed, nutrient-deficient plants through chemical signals invisible to us. A tomato plant that's short on certain key minerals produces less of the natural defensive compounds that make its leaves unpalatable. It's essentially sending out a signal that says, "Easy target, come and eat." And in a garden with depleted soil, that signal is broadcasting constantly. The insects are just responding to information your plant is putting out. The mineral that sits at the center of this story is magnesium. And the cheapest way to deliver it is a compound most people know by a completely different name, Epsom salt. Chemically, it's magnesium sulfate. It's two nutrients bound together. And the reason it matters so much for your garden is that both of those nutrients, magnesium and sulfur, happen to be precisely the two elements most consistently missing from modern American backyard soil. The history of this compound in American gardens goes back further than most people realize. German immigrant communities in the Midwest were using it routinely in the late 1800s, bringing the practice over from kitchen garden traditions in southern Germany where it had been passed down for generations. A Cincinnati pamphlet from 1887, printed in German for immigrant readers, recommended 2 tablespoons to 1 gallon of warm water for vegetable gardens, the exact same ratio that soil scientists would later validate in controlled studies. That pamphlet was written for ordinary householders, not farmers. The knowledge was considered basic, practical, unglamorous, the kind of thing grandmothers taught without needing a reason beyond "it works." What makes Epsom salt work at the plant science level comes down to 2 parallel mechanisms. Magnesium is the atom that sits at the very center of every chlorophyll molecule. Without adequate magnesium, a plant physically cannot build chlorophyll at the rate it needs to photosynthesize efficiently. The leaves go pale, growth slows, and the plant starts operating at a kind of nutritional deficit. Not dead, not obviously sick, just running below capacity. Think of it like trying to run a car engine 3 quarts low on oil. It'll move, but not the way it's supposed to. At the same time, sulfur drives the production of specific volatile compounds in plant tissue, chemicals that act as natural pest deterrents, giving plants their characteristic sharp smells and flavors. A sulfur-deficient plant produces these at reduced levels, and that's exactly what makes it attractive to cabbage moths, aphids, and squash bugs. They're not choosing your garden randomly, they're choosing the plants that have, in a chemical sense, let their defenses down. Here's the part that explains why this never made it into the standard gardening guides. There is no money in Epsom salt. A 5-pound bag costs under $5 at any pharmacy or farm supply store. Magnesium sulfate is not patentable. There's no exclusive formula, no brand, no profit margin to defend. Compare that to synthetic pesticide products, which are patent protected, heavily marketed, and sold at markups that would make your head spin. The incentive structure in commercial agriculture runs almost entirely through university extension programs that receive significant funding from agricultural chemical companies. Those programs aren't corrupt. Most of the people working in them are genuinely trying to help. But the research priorities follow the money, and there is simply no funding mechanism that rewards studying a $5 pharmacy product that nobody owns. There were studies. A soil scientist at Purdue in the late 1940s ran controlled trials comparing Epsom-treated tomato plots to standard fertilized controls and documented dramatic reductions in pest damage and substantial yield increases. Similar results came out of Ohio State and Wisconsin in the early 1950s. Those studies were published in small bulletins, distributed in limited runs, and then quietly faded from circulation right around the time agricultural chemical companies were significantly expanding their relationships with land-grant universities. You can still find some of them in university special collections if you know what to ask for. but they never made it into the mainstream recommendations. The knowledge survived instead in the practices of older gardeners and immigrant communities who had no reason to abandon something that worked just because the Extension Office wasn't recommending it anymore. There's also a piece of this story that most people never connect to their garden. American soils have become significantly more sulfur deficient over the past 50 years, not because of anything gardeners did wrong, but because of the Clean Air Act amendments that reduced sulfur dioxide emissions from coal plants. That was a real environmental win. It ended acid rain and restored lakes and forests across the eastern United States. But one side effect is that the trace sulfur, which used to fall with every rainstorm as slightly acidic precipitation, simply doesn't fall anymore. For most of the 20th century, the rain itself was quietly supplying sulfur to every garden in the country. That source is gone. Epsom salt is one of the simplest, most direct ways to replace it. So here is exactly how to use this. The ratio is 2 tablespoons of Epsom salt, tablespoons, not teaspoons, dissolved in 1 gallon of warm water. Warm it to roughly the temperature of a comfortable bath, around 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Stir with a wooden or plastic spoon until the water goes from slightly cloudy to fully clear. Pour it directly at the base of each plant into the soil within about 6 inches of the main stem, where the feeder roots are concentrated. Do not apply it to the leaves at this concentration. In sun or heat, it can cause burning. Timing matters. Wait about 2 weeks after transplanting seedlings before you start to let roots establish first. Then apply once a week through the growing season, stopping about 3 weeks before your first expected frost. Apply in the early morning before temperatures rise to soil that's slightly moist but not saturated. Don't apply right before rain. It'll dilute before the roots can absorb it. For tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant, use about 1 cup per plant per week. For brassicas, cabbage, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, use 3/4 cup twice a week because they absorb magnesium more slowly and respond better to more frequent, smaller doses. Squash, leafy greens, and herbs get about 1/2 cup once a week. Root vegetables like carrots and beets get 1/2 cup every 2 weeks. Excess magnesium early in their development can distort the roots. Now, a few honest caveats, because Hidden Fix Lab doesn't sell you a fantasy. In dry climates west of the Mississippi, where evaporation is high and rain is limited, sulfate salts can accumulate in the soil over time if you're not careful. If you're in Arizona or Nevada or the high desert, add a deep monthly watering to flush salts below the root zone. In the eastern half of the country, natural rainfall handles this automatically. Magnesium and calcium also compete for root uptake, so if your soil is already heavily limed and calcium-rich, keep the applications at the rates I described rather than increasing them. The studies that documented reductions in blossom end rot used these exact rates, not more. The protocol works at this level. There's no reason to push it higher. What you should expect, starting around week 3 or 4, is visible. The leaves go darker green as chlorophyll production picks up. Stems thicken, flowering becomes more prolific. And the pest pressure, not eliminated because nothing short of actual toxins eliminates it entirely, and anyone who promises otherwise is lying to you, drops to a level that's manageable by hand. Aphid colonies that would have exploded into the thousands stay small enough to knock back with a garden hose. Cabbage moths largely migrate to gardens where the plants are less chemically defended. Hornworms still appear, but fewer of them, and they tend to feed less aggressively on plant tissue that's carrying its full complement of defensive compounds. The deeper thing this practice represents is worth thinking about. For most of American gardening history, the soil fed itself partly through processes in the atmosphere that no longer operate. The rain brought sulfur, organic matter recycled magnesium. Nobody added anything because the system was replacing what it lost. What industrial agriculture and cleaner air and synthetic fertilizers have done together over 70 years is break those cycles quietly and invisibly, leaving gardeners confused about why their soil feels tired and why the pests keep winning. Epsom salt doesn't fix all of that, but it addresses 2 specific gaps directly, cheaply, and in a form the plant can actually use. 2 tablespoons, 1 gallon, once a week. Start this Sunday on whatever you already have in the ground. Come back in a month and tell us what you're seeing. The best garden discoveries always travel person to person, season to season, not from a label on a bottle.